Hello everybody and welcome back to English for Professionals. I'm Derek and I'm here with another short lesson for you busy people. In this new type of lesson, I'm going to explain vocabulary to help you better understand recent news stories. So if you're interested in what's going on in the world and you want to improve your English, keep watching. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe to my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell. That way you'll be notified every time I upload a new lesson. And now, let's get started. So we're going to look at vocabulary from 4 different news stories. First, we'll look at a story about the Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba. Then we'll hear about Joe Biden's plan to end America's longest war in Afghanistan. The third story is about the AstraZeneca vaccine in Denmark. And our last news story is a surprise. And before we look at the first news story, let me just say that the goal here is not to promote or express my opinion about these stories. I just want to help you understand the key vocabulary. The Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba has been fined $2.8 billion by Chinese regulators. The Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba has been fined $2.8 billion by Chinese regulators. Let's take a look at some of the vocabulary here. First of all, an e-commerce company is a company that sells things on the internet. A company that sells things on the internet. Then we have the verb to fine, which means to make someone pay money as a punishment. To make someone pay money as a punishment. And we also have the word regulator, which is a person or organization that officially controls an industry to make sure that it operates or works legally and fairly. A person or organization that officially controls an industry to make sure that everything works fairly and legally. And now let's take a look at some other words from that news story. So why was Alibaba fined so much money? Well, the regulators said that the company had abused its market position for years. So let's take a look at the vocabulary here. The verb abuse. Abuse. This means to use something in a way that it shouldn't be used. To use something in a way that it shouldn't be used. So basically, the regulators said that Alibaba used their strong position to make it difficult for other companies to have a share of the market. And some more useful vocabulary from this article is tech giant. Tech giant, which is a term used to describe a technology company, such as Alibaba, which is very big and powerful. Another example of a tech giant is Facebook. And our next story is that Joe Biden officially announced his plans to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. Joe Biden officially announced his plans to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. And now let's take a closer look at a couple of these words. First of all, withdraw. If an army withdraws, it leaves a place. If an army withdraws, it leaves a place. And the other word here, troops, is another word for soldiers, especially in large groups. Troops are soldiers, especially large groups of soldiers. And now let's take a look at some other words from this news article. Some people celebrate this news and others are concerned. So to celebrate in this context means to show that you're happy about something or that you welcome it. You're happy about it or you welcome it. To be concerned about something is to be worried about something. To be worried about something. And another example from this story, An Afghan government peace negotiator said it was an irresponsible and selfish thing to do. Irresponsible is simply the opposite of responsible. And be careful here, we don't say unresponsible, we say irresponsible. Irresponsible. And we also have selfish, which means caring only about yourself rather than about other people. Caring only about yourself rather than about other people. And our next news story is Denmark stops using AstraZeneca vaccine entirely because of possible link to very rare blood clot cases. Denmark stops using AstraZeneca vaccine entirely because of possible link to very rare blood clot cases. Let's take a closer look at some of these words. The first one, entirely. Entirely, which is another word for completely, another way to say completely. They completely stopped using the AstraZeneca vaccine. And the next word here, maybe you already know it, rare. Rare, which means not seen or found very often, or not happening very often. Not seen or found very often, or not happening very often. And a blood clot is a lump that is formed when blood becomes thicker. A lump that is formed when blood becomes thicker. Now let's take a look at some other words from this story. More than a dozen other countries suspended the use of AstraZeneca's product, but almost all have resumed after the European Medicines Agency said the vaccine was safe and effective. The first word we're going to look at in this sentence is dozen. Dozen, which is another word for 12. 12. We also have the verb suspend, which means to officially stop something for a time. To officially stop something for a time. And one other verb, resume. Resume. If you resume an activity or if it resumes, it begins again or continues after being interrupted. So an activity begins again or continues after being interrupted. And now it's time for our final news story in this lesson. I think we can all agree that most of the news we see and hear is bad news. So I thought we'd finish this lesson with some good news. If you're interested in wildlife, I think you'll like this story from Nepal. The number of one-horned rhinos in Nepal's wildlife sanctuaries has increased to more than 100. The number of one-horned rhinos in Nepal's wildlife sanctuaries has increased to more than 100. A wildlife sanctuary is an area for birds or animals where they are protected and can't be hunted. An area for birds or animals where they are protected and can't be hunted. Now let's take a look at a couple of other words from this story. This news marks a positive milestone in Nepal's conservation efforts. So the verb to mark means to celebrate an important event. To celebrate an important event. And a milestone is a very important event in the development of something. A milestone is a very important event in the development of something. And finally, we have conservation. Conservation. The protection of natural things such as animals, plants, forests, etc. The protection of natural things such as animals, plants, forests, etc. So that brings us to the end of the first Words in the News lesson on the channel. I hope you liked it and I hope you learned something new. Please let me know what you think of this kind of video if you'd like to see more in the future. All your feedback is welcome. If you did like it, please hit the like button and share with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already and join my email list. Every 2 weeks I send out my free vocabulary email with additional business English, more words in the news and everyday English for you to learn. The link is in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.